morning, everyone. It is an absolute honor and a pleasure to be here with you today and to share this stage with so many brilliant minds. I found myself in biotechnology not because that was the path that I was on, but because it was a path I had to be on. As you just heard, my young daughter was diagnosed with a low-grade brain tumor at 8.5 months old. The first picture is a photo that we had taken of her right after diagnosis, and as you can see, she was the picture of health. But her left eye had begun shaking, so we took her to a string of doctor's appointments, and over the course of a doctor's appointment on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then an MRI on Friday, that weekend, we were called by her doctor with the devastating news that she had a brain tumor that was so rare, he had to Google it. He'd never even heard of it. And unfortunately, the only course of action for our infant daughter was chemotherapy. And what we learned was that these protocols that they were going to be using for our child had not really been advanced in 40 years. And in fact, only 3.8% of all government funding was going to advance pediatric cancer research. This news was devastating to us. We couldn't imagine a world where children weren't a priority. And so very quickly, I decided that I was going to have to do something about this. I could not sit around and let my daughter be pumped full of chemotherapy for God knows how long, because these tumors, although they are survivable, they have an 85% recurrence rate, and some children can be on chemotherapy for years. I knew I couldn't sit around and do nothing, and as luck would have it, we were contacted by former talk show host and film star Ricki Lake. And she had just begun shooting a documentary that landed itself on Netflix for over 5 years. And she began telling us about a plant that she thought could be beneficial to our daughter. Now, the road to immunotherapy for me was very windy and twisty, and this was the first step in that road to where I am today. And at 9 months old, my daughter became a medical cannabis patient. Now, many of you in this room may not have even thought about this as a therapy. Some of you have possibly heard of the incredible benefits that families and practitioners are seeing all over the world using this plant. And if it were discovered today, it would be considered a superfood and an answer to many problems. But it has been demonized, as many of you know. But with Sophie, after doing a lot of research and after really looking into this plant and after talking to her oncologist, who agreed that this was something we could use on our daughter, we began at 9 months old, and this was all captured as part of the documentary. And what we saw after that was incredible. Sophie's immune function began getting stronger and stronger and stronger on chemotherapy when otherwise her count should be dropping, like the other kids that were on these same protocols. But we weren't seeing that. We saw a mitigation of seizure activity. She had so much brain damage from this tumor, she began having seizures at a young age. And if we took her off her cannabis to try a new drug, if the doctors had requested, we of course did so, she'd start having 10 seizures a day. And the Keppra that she was on wasn't touching it. We'd put her back on the cannabis. She'd have 1 seizure every 3 to 6 months, very mild stop and stare. And if you weren't her parents, you wouldn't have even noticed that it was happening. We saw her vision coming back time and time again. And with these types of tumors being an optic pathway glioma, they squeeze the optic tract. And so blindness is a high probability. And in fact, we were told when Sophie was diagnosed that she had a 100% chance of going blind in 1 year. And although her vision is low today, she still has vision, can navigate our house without any problems. She does use a cane, she does use Braille. But her vision is getting better now, and we'll dig more into why I think that is in a little bit. She didn't see the type of trauma that you traditionally do from surgeries, and she wasn't having these nightmares. To meet my child, you will see that cancer didn't steal her sparkle. She's not afraid of the white coats. She is the most outgoing child. I wish she was here today because she'd probably end up knowing every person in this room before she left. That is just how outgoing she is. But the tumor kept recurring. And so we had to keep looking and we had to keep doing more, because although we were boosting her immune function and we were helping her in so many other ways, this tumor was relentless and it just kept coming back. So in 2018, Sophie required what was her third of 5 brain surgeries. And I was able to get some of her live brain tissue. And I knew I had to get this into mice. I had to find someone to help me. And at the time, I'd raised a few $1 million for research going on at the Technion Institute in Israel, where they were advancing medical cannabis science faster than anyone else in the world. And I was going to take these mice and hand deliver them to Dr. Dedi Miri, who is my partner in Israel, to do cannabinoid sensitivity testing. And that is when I was introduced to my now business partner, Dr. Anahid Jewett, who is the director and professor of the Tumor Immunology Division in oral and medicine at UCLA. She is one of the 2% top doctors in the world per Stanford University last year, and she is one of the world leaders in the field of natural killer cells. I'll tell you a little bit more about natural killer cells in a minute and some of her advancements. But when I met this woman, I knew that I was standing in front of someone that really understood cancer and that really understood medicine and could potentially help me with my child. So I knew I had to really show off. I had to show her passion like I had never shown anyone before. So I began going through Sophie's case with her. Sophie failed 8 different protocols of chemotherapy, sometimes 4 chemos at once, and each protocol lasted anywhere from 10 to 13 months, depending on when the therapy stopped working. She had 11 surgeries in total. 5 of those were in her brain. She has a left-hand side weakness from some of these surgeries and from a cyst that grew in the motor cortex. She had to learn how to walk again. She does have some function in her hand, but not a lot. She's had dozens and dozens and dozens of hospital stays over the year. These therapies were so extraordinarily toxic. Severe visual impairment, and let this sink in, 75 MRIs as a child. A lot of adults can't handle one, but this little girl stays still and doesn't move for 45 minutes at a time without anything to knock her out. It took years for us to get there, but she got there. So Dr. Jewett, after hearing this passion and this desperation, and after me telling her about all the work that I had been doing in medical cannabis, all of the patients around the world that I had been servicing, we had our own tincture line at this point. We were seeing incredible results in cancer, autism, epilepsy. I was speaking all over the world, advocating for the use of this plant safely. She started to get really curious about Sophie, especially when I was telling her about all these medical miracles we kept seeing with her. And so she agreed, I'm going to put this tumor into not just mice, but humanized mice for you, but under one condition. You have to let me study your daughter. So I did, and when she looked at Sophie's blood, she could not understand what she was seeing. She calls me up and she was like, Tracy, something's going on here and I need to know more about your daughter. Her immune function is that of a healthy person. This doesn't make any sense. Your child's on chemotherapy. She's been on chemotherapy for years. She has this brain tumor. Cancer's not supposed to be able to grow in the body when your natural killer cells are performing as well as your daughter's are. Something strange is happening. And as luck would have it, an unlucky, lucky situation, after one of her surgeries, there was a cyst that formed in the pocket where they debulked the tumor, and it started pooling outside of the side of her face. So we had to do another brain surgery and drain it. And when she studied that fluid, that is when the miracle happened. What she discovered was, although my daughter had highly functioning immune cells in her peripheral blood, she had 0 natural killer cells in her brain. Tons of CD8 positive T cells, the immune function was well and balanced and everything looked normal except the NK cells were gone. So we believed, maybe, just maybe, we knew how to fix my daughter. This research that we did together on Sophie and on 27 of my then cancer patients who were taking cannabinoid medicine that proved to us not only in humans, but also when we reverse engineered these into mice, that cannabinoids were boosting natural killer cells, the field Dr. Jewett was in, and in our mice showed that cannabinoids had the ability to kill cancer stem and stem-like cells. Our worlds collided. I'm in cannabis, they're activating natural killer cells. She's in natural killer cells, she has a natural killer cell immunotherapy, and she believes she knows how to fix my daughter in ways that the medicine that I was working with couldn't. So we decided to join forces and really start figuring out how we can help more people in a way that wasn't toxic, because that was my goal. I've watched my daughter get pumped full of toxicity for 7 solid years, and it was unbelievably devastating for her, for our family, for everyone that loved her. And when I looked at natural killer cells, I got very excited, because here was a therapy that was emerging. Many companies in the world now have jumped into this field to look at NK cells because of the safety profile, because we're not seeing graft versus host or cytokine storms when you're using allogeneic donor cells from a healthy adult. We are seeing with Dr. Jewett's form of natural killer cell immunotherapy the potential to not just kill high-grade tumors, but also low-grade tumors like my daughter, where there is no treatment, there is nothing that can cure these incurable brain tumors. And we're seeing potential in blood cancer and other immune-related diseases, because natural killer cells are all about fixing the immune system. So for anyone in the room who is not intimately aware of natural killer cells, they are the main drivers of your immune system. We call them the generals in the marching army. And what Dr. Jewett had discovered in her 35 years of research is that when these cells fail, it's our first step in getting cancer. So her belief and her research was showing that if we can repair that system and we can boost it above what the body is capable of doing on its own, we could have the potential to turn the immune system against the cancer itself and make the immune system the weapon. Much like with T-cell therapy, but without the toxicity. And one of the things that she was seeing in her over 500 animal model studies in both humanized and NSG mice was that she was restoring immune function. So if we can get rid of cancer without hurting the body, and we can fix the immune system that had originally failed, that allowed for cancer to be there in the first place, that could be really exciting. And by keeping the immune system healthy, there's the potential to use this therapy with other therapies. Nobody's trying to get rid of chemotherapy when it comes to what I'm doing. We're just trying to lower the dose a little so the patients don't get so sick, but also while boosting the immune system to keep them healthy, so the immune system they need to stay alive and thrive remains intact. Now that we had started NKore BioTherapeutics, we had to get to work. We knew that we had to make this available first and foremost for my daughter. So we had now been successful at establishing manufacturing in both Mexico and in the United States. We have started treating patients in Cancun under Mexican regulatory and following the guidelines for palliative care. And our first patients were treated in 2023. We've only treated 4 so far, but this year our goal is to treat between 30 to 50 patients while we are finalizing our IND application to the FDA, which we think we're about 3/4 the way through that right now. We've got to do some more animal studies after our gap analysis just came back, but we are hitting it hard, and our goal is to try and file this year so that early next year we can start human trials here in the United States. And one thing that you will learn about me is that advocacy is just something innately built into me. I am an advocate by nature. I go to Capitol Hill every year. I speak on the Hill for the Congressional Pediatric Caucus. I've been to the White House 5 times in the last 2 years. I met with the former president multiple times. I work very closely with the Moonshot Initiative from the White House and their initiatives to end pediatric cancer. And so we're filming all of this as part of a documentary because more people need to understand that these medicines are emerging, science is emerging, we are getting there so much faster than what I have ever seen before. So this was an opportunity for us to really showcase not only what we are doing, but to open the eyes of more people to what these patients go through, to what my own daughter went through, because when my daughter was diagnosed, I knew nothing about pediatric cancer other than the commercials that I would see for St. Jude's. That was literally the only knowledge that I have. And kids deserve more. We just recently lost 100 out of $160 million in grant funding with the most recent cuts, and there's no cost to the American people. We're already not getting enough money for children. So as part of this documentary, I am hopeful is going to help us raise more awareness, raise more funds, and get more people backing scientific initiatives. Now I want to tell you about two of the patients that we have worked with. And this is very exciting for me because this has been a 12-year culmination of me trying to find something for Sophie, but now it's helping others, which is what gets me up every day. And the first one is Jamie Grooms. Jamie is actually our interim CEO right now. He is a very successful biotech entrepreneur. He's been through FDA many, many times. He vetted our therapy for a solid year with his team at Mayo Clinic before agreeing to be patient number 1. Chronic lymphocytic leukemia was his diagnosis. He had a mutation that took his disease prognosis from good to very poor. And after 3 years of therapy, they could not get his bone marrow counts and his blood counts below 20% cancer infiltration. And he felt like he had the flu every day. He was not living. He was miserable. And this was not the life he wanted for himself. He was a triathlon and an avid diver. So in December of 2023, Jamie got a low dose of 360 million cells. And for anyone who is familiar with the natural killer cell field, traditional doses range in the billions of cells. We're doing hundreds of millions, so very low doses. And excitingly enough, on day 58, post that first infusion, an infusion that he had side effects from, but the side effects were positive. His brain fog went away, his body pain went away. He was able to sleep through the night for the first time. He stopped needing coffee to get through the day. He stopped needing naps to get through the day. He had energy again. He had a horrible back strain that he showed up with. When he woke up the next day, the pain was gone. He could still tell there was a little pull, but he could stand up straight and move around without issue. All the inflammation in his body was being relieved. So not only was he starting to feel better, but on day 58, 75% of the cancer in his blood was gone. And his tumors had reduced in size by anywhere from 20 to 70% after one infusion, which was very exciting. Now, these tumors now, they're not even tracking them anymore because they're essentially gone. Jamie received his second infusion 7 months later. Now, we spread these really far apart because A, we're studying safety, and B, we wanted to look at persistence. We wanted to know how long is this therapy going to last. A lot of other companies in our field are moving to autoimmune disease because of lack of persistence. The cells just aren't lasting. Now, we have some more studies to do in order to determine how long our cells are staying in the body and at what point do our own immune cells take over and start targeting the cancer. We have done some FISH tests on one of our other patients, and we know that they got a male's natural killer cells. In this case, it was my husband's, whose immune system beat out over 7 20-year-olds. Our daughter does not have a genetic mutation that caused her cancer, so it is my husband's own immune cells that are fixing what's going on with my daughter, which is very exciting. But his cells were male, and our other patient was female, and 6 months post-infusion, it was her own cells, her own natural killer cells, that were still boosted to 34% when they were 8% prior to the infusion, and working strong. And with Jamie, at month 6 to 7, we saw his B cells go down by 10%. This is a B cell malignancy, overproduction of B cells in the body. So we knew at the 7-month mark, these cells were still working, but we wanted to hit him again. We wanted to get rid of this cancer, and so we did. And after that second infusion, he just had another MRD, minimum residual disease test, the other day. He now has 0.23% cancer left in his body. 2 infusions, spread 7 months apart, 0 side effects. And then there's the second patient, my pride and joy, my beautiful daughter, Sophie. She was patient number 2 and the first pediatric patient to ever receive this therapy. And as you can see, this is a very proud moment for me and Dad. To be able to offer our child a therapy that not only was made from my own husband's cells, but one that we had helped bring to market, that we had helped pioneer the commercialization of. This was a crowning moment for us because our daughter was supposed to go back on chemotherapy. Her tumor started growing again after 2 years off of treatment. And the chemo that they were going to put her on was carboplatin at 4 times the dose that she had it as a baby. And when she got it as a baby, she was highly, highly allergic to it. and it would have ruined her life. It would have stripped what little childhood that she had had completely away from her, because it would have been so toxic and it would not have been curative. And then after that, she was out of options. After that, she was going to have to start over with old chemotherapies that she had failed. So this was a moment that words cannot describe. I stand here covered in chills just thinking about what the feelings were that we were emoting in this very moment. Now, after Sophie got her infusion, the child talked so much that night, she was literally hoarse when she woke up the next day, and she only got 100 million cells. 100 million. And again, the field is billions of cells, and these cells are given continuously, sometimes week after week after week. One infusion of 100 million cells, 0 side effects, and her vision started to improve. And we did see what we believe to be pseudoprogression. The tumor did swell, which is what you want to see with immunotherapy. You want to see the cells infiltrating the mass, because now you know they've crossed the blood-brain barrier. Now you know they're in the brain. Now you know that where she has this absence of natural killer cells, there's natural killer cells there now, doing their job, teaching the other immune cells what to do so this tumor can be destroyed. This is Sophie's most recent scan after her second infusion of only 160 million cells. Now, these pictures don't even do justice what the actual video looks like of Sophie's MRI. The amount of necrosis and the crumbling that we are seeing in this disease with such tiny, tiny little doses of cells is unbelievable. We do plan on giving her and Jamie one more infusion in late April or May, and we're hopeful this will be all they need. But my daughter's never been healthier. She's never felt better. She's never been stronger. And now she has gone from looking like this sick child who was riddled with chemotherapy, who struggled through much of her life with seizures. We have cured the seizures now. Unfortunately, we did have to take out a piece of brain in which to do that. But this is what a patient on chemotherapy goes through. This is what they look like. This is what they endure. And as scientists in the field, I know that you are here because you want to make the world a healthier place. It is because of so many of you that my child and the people that came before you, that she's even alive. I am grateful to these toxic therapies, because at the time it is all we had access to. It's all that medicine had offered. But we must do better for these patients. There are so many advancements going on right now in the world of science that makes me so hopeful. And for us, we are constantly looking for other people that we can personally collaborate with to help advance this faster. What combinational therapies can we do to work together? What can we use along natural killer cells that are going to help the patients be healthier, but also help those toxic therapies, more toxic therapies, work better? How do we stop cancer? How do we detect it before it shows up in the body? And how do we fix the immune system so that this is a disease that one day doesn't scare us anymore? I go to bed at night and I have to think about the many patients over the years that I have watched succumb to this terrible, terrible ailment. I've watched the pain and the suffering of families all over the world. I have watched more than anybody should have to. But it drives me to be at places like this, in audiences with people like you, some of the absolute brightest minds in the world, because together we can come together and we can stop these diseases. The opportunity is there for collaboration, for support of one another, so that children don't have to look like this. They can look like this. This is what my daughter now looks like at 12 years old, using natural killer cell therapy. Sophie has become an advocate for medicine and for children. This center picture here was just this past September. Every year we go to Washington, D.C. in September for CureFest and for the Brainstorm Summit, and we speak on behalf of the Congressional Pediatric Cancer Caucus. This is the caucus that just lost 100 million of its 160 million in funding, bills that we've been advocating for and have been funded for 12 years. Bills that bring forth critical funding for companies like ours and for patients to get access to care, to try combinational therapies, to get hand-me-down drugs from the adult trials because the children's trials are harder to do. Advocacy is something that is rooted in our family. We have to be a part of the solution together. And with NKore, we don't want to just stop with cancer. We want to look at autoimmune disease. We want to look at ALS. We want to look at Alzheimer's and dementia, type 1 diabetes. We want to help patients get healthier faster. We want to be a part of the solution. We want to work with government. We want to work with industry. We want to work with foundations to move these medicines forward faster. As you all know, science is tricky. It's expensive, it takes a long time, it takes hundreds of millions of dollars. And that is why using this unique safety profile and effectiveness that we believe we have with our cellular therapy treatment, it is our goal now to partner with many of you to raise the critical funds that we need to raise to bring this off-the-shelf solution to market, not just by itself, but in combination. Sometimes it's a monotherapy, sometimes it's a combinational therapy, but together as an industry coming together to help the greater good. Now, one of the biggest parts of my life has always been philanthropy and working with families who cannot afford these treatments, and that's another one of the things that we'll find with many families like ours is financial devastation. There isn't a lot of support in the United States for middle-income families for out-of-pocket treatments, for these expensive therapies that you can get all over the world that are under palliative care, much like ours. In Cancun, our treatment isn't covered by insurance, and it by no means is cheap. But no child or adult should be denied care because they don't make enough money. They just shouldn't. So that's why we created Saving Sophie many years ago. This is our foundation. This is our 501c3 that we use for advocacy. We use for fundraising. We try to help families all over that need financial support in order to access care, because so many of the things that are so promising right now aren't in hospitals, because again, getting through FDA is hard. It's hard, it's challenging, and it takes a lot of money. I'm not in biotechnology because that was the path that I thought I was going to take. I am here because of an absolute necessity, but it is an honor to have found this road. Because through science, I believe that we can challenge conventional norms together. We can change outcomes for families like mine and for patients like Sophie. Patients who otherwise wouldn't have had a chance. I stand before you not knowing whether or not my daughter would have survived this survivable brain tumor. I don't think she would have, if I'm being honest. I don't know if she would be here with us today, thriving. And most families don't have the opportunities that I have and have had. They don't have the energy or the know-how to get out of bed every day and to fight this fight. It is grueling and it is tiring, but together we can get there. I want to thank you all, each and every one, for walking this path before me and for laying the stones in which I currently step. I want to thank you for the continued work that you do in science to revolutionize healthcare for patients everywhere. Together, we can make this world a better and healthier place to live. Thank you so much. Do you need to take questions?
Thank you very much, Tracy, for your amazing journey. And I'm pretty sure this, all what you are doing is going to help so many patients in the world to recover from the deadly diseases like cancer and all. So definitely, we have a lot of time for question and answer. If you don't mind, I have one question for that. What may be the reason for that pseudo progression which they saw in case of Sophie?
Sure. So what you want to see when using natural killer cells is you want to see a swelling of the tumor. And what that means, especially in brain cancer, is that the cells are now bypassing the blood-brain barrier. They've gotten into the brain, and because they take up space, there's a mass effect. They're penetrating the disease and taking up space and causing the tumor to swell. It doesn't mean the tumor is getting bigger. In fact, it's getting smaller by mass, but by size and circumference, it is enlarging. And that means the cells have now successfully gone inside and they're now doing the job that they're supposed to do, which is identifying these cells and eradicating them. Which is, if you remember on the picture of Sophie's scan, there's this peppering effect. It looks like there's these little black holes all throughout the tumor. And that is the necrosis that we're beginning to see as her tumor starts to crumble.
Great, great. Thank you.
Yes.
It's open for other questions, please.
Yes, ma'am. I think we have a microphone coming over. Now, keep in mind, everyone, I'm a momcologist, not a scientist, so let's try not to go too heavy. If there are questions I cannot answer, I would be more than happy to take them back to my team and revert them back to you.
Actually, my question was technical, but it's okay. I'll keep it
You can try. You can try.
What a journey, Tracy. Congratulations on you, your family, how Sophie has been recovering. It has been an amazing journey.
Thank you.
But my question is, you said that with the cannabis treatment, the NK cells were doing fine in the peripheral blood.
Yes.
It was just not within the brain.
Correct.
So I'm going to try to simplify it. So what do you think may have been the reason how your husband giving the bone marrow helped? Was it the chimerism from your husband's bone marrow that not only caused elevated level of NK cell, but something that may have, broken the blood-brain barrier? Because was it the blood-brain barrier that was stopping the NK cell from traveling there, or was it the immunosuppressive environment that was created that was stopping it? That's why I said, I know it's a technical
No, that's fine. I understand everything you said. So first of all, it was his peripheral blood that we took the natural killer cells from, not his marrow. So thankfully, this is a very easy process.
Yeah.
We currently are doing a simple blood draw because we're not doing super large runs at the moment. Eventually, we will do much larger blood draws with the patients themselves and use pheresis in order to take larger quantities of NK cells. We believed it's the supercharged nature of these cells. We have not been able to prove out exactly what's happening, but we do believe that there was a blood-brain barrier malfunctioning that was keeping Sophie's own primary natural killer cells that are far less powerful than a supercharged natural killer cell from bypassing the blood-brain barrier. That's the only thing that really makes sense to us. And we think that the supercharged natural killer cells now are so much more powerful and engineered to fight that they are somehow bypassing whatever it was going on with that blood-brain barrier.
Yeah, I mean, we had something very similar study going on. That's why I'm asking this, because I feel it may not just be the blood-brain barrier issue. It could be the tumor suppressive environment that was broken that led to an opening from the chimerism from your husband's donor.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. And if you would be willing, I would love to take a look at that study to see if that opens up any ideas that we might have so we can better understand this.
Yeah.
There are 2 other children that we had studied. One of them had glioblastoma, and another one had a stage 2 pilocytic astrocytoma. And what we found in their brains is that they did have natural killer cells, but they were highly malfunctioned, as were many of their other immune cells. With Sophie, all her other immune cells were working well, and they were in balance, but she didn't have natural killer cells. So I also have a theory, and again, it's not anything that we've tested, that helps to kind of lend as to why her was a low-grade brain tumor versus a stage 2 through 4, more aggressive and often terminal tumor upon diagnosis. But thank you for that question. Anyone else have anything? There's one over here.
Yep.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all the advocacy, and so glad to see that Sophie's doing so much better now. Could you talk a little bit about what makes these cells supercharged, or how you're selecting these, and how when maybe your husband has run out, not I don't want to say run out, but how are you going to get more donors to supply this to the clinic and continue commercialization?
Sure, absolutely. So we have a series of tests that we use that Dr. Jewett has developed at UCLA, different series of assays. It's about 13 different tests that we do that help us understand the overall function of the natural killer cell system in the donor and the other supporting cells. My husband and I, and again, some of you may think that I'm crazy for saying this, but look into it. My husband and I microdose medical cannabis every night medicinally and very responsibly, and we do it for pain, arthritis, sleep. I don't have to take sleep aids anymore because I don't like to use pharmaceuticals if I don't have to, and because of that, our immune function is through the roof. We actually use my osteoclast in many of these runs because the combination of my osteoclast and my husband's natural killer cells, there's something magical there. I think we were just supposed to be together and create this remarkable little girl to be on this mission. And we are using my osteoclast and a combination of 9 different strains of probiotic bacteria that we are feeding to the NK cells on top of reagents in this very specific patented process that takes us about 8 weeks' time. And when those natural killer cells are finished consuming the osteoclast and the probiotic bacteria, we can take one primary natural killer cell and turn it into roughly 5 million supercharged NK cells. So that is what it is that we're actually using very natural things to charge them as well. So again, the use of no toxicity in which to make this immunotherapy. It makes them more cytotoxic, it makes them last longer with higher functioning power, release of gamma interferon is taken way up, and that is what we have seen in over 500 humanized mice now, reverse every cancer from breast, liver, lung, oral, colorectal, lymphoma, leukemia, stage 4 ovarian, breast, glioblastoma, low-grade brain tumors, and a myriad of blood cancers.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have time for one more. No? Oh, one right here.
Thank you, and thank you so much for that absolutely awe-inspiring presentation. It's quite remarkable. My question is possibly piggybacks on the one we had a couple ago, but I'm from a far less scientific background, even than yourself as a mumcologist. I'm just curious to know about the low dose of NK cells, in the infusions, the 100 million, 150 million, which you were sort of saying is way below sort of the industry norm, so to speak. How did the team come to a decision on putting a number of on those infusions, and why so low? And I guess if you can just walk me or walk the audience through that process, that would be kind of interesting.
Absolutely. So it was all originally based on what they were seeing in the animal models, and this is safety. So we wanted to start at as low of a dose as possible, especially when it's my child. Now, natural killer cells are something that I've never had any fear of, or I would not have had my child go first. Sophie had actually received 2 infusions of IL-2 activated natural killer cells at the end of 2021, I believe, yeah, 2021. And these were IL-2 activated, so she did have some mild side effects for a few days from the IL-2, but the natural killer cells she handled quite nicely, and those were also her husband's. So when we looked at the animal model data and we were looking at how many natural killer cells Dr. Jewett was using, and then she converted that to what her way of doing the mathematical processes around moving from mice to humans, those were the low doses she wanted to start with. Now, I will tell you, we have also treated 2 other patients. One is our scientist with deep vein thrombosis, where we have seen incredible, incredible promise. And then the 4th patient was glioblastoma. Now, glioblastoma, that's an aggressive beast of a disease. So we did start with a low dose in this woman, but on her next scan, whereas the disease that had not been radiated, we saw stabilization and a little bit of shrinkage, but a new spot popped up that she had to have surgically removed. So when we gave her her next infusion in January, we tripled that dose. So we are now in the process of dose escalation. We also don't intend on spreading doses 7 months apart. This was, again, we were just trying to be A, safe, and B, look at persistence and see how long these cells could potentially last. With our FDA application, our intention is to do 1 dose a month for 3 months. And those doses I am advocating for currently with our medical advisory board to increase, because now we're showing tolerance. So my goal in all of this is truly to give as few doses as possible with high enough cell counts to where the patients are just feeling amazing afterwards, and then that way they're not having to come back month after month after month. I want to get rid of these tumors far faster than what we're doing with my own daughter, and we're going to do that through a dose escalation process.
Thank you.
Of course. So I think that is our time.
Excellent, excellent.
Yes.
Thank you very much
Thank you
for
all
your
so
great presentation. And
Thank you all.
we're sure Sophie is going to be cancer-free pretty soon, and this will be helpful. Thank you very much.
I'm going to come back next year and report to you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.